3.2 External Projects. This is a short video of some knitting that I've been teaching myself. Since completing 3.1 Practice and Research, I have decided that the location of my textile practice will be based around the textile discipline knitting. I've had to teach myself how to hand knit and use various equipment, knitting machines, large and small knitting needles, and some French knitting. And this video presents materials that I've been knitting under investigation. So we can see through here I've started to learn or teach myself knitting with some garden twines and string, and used various scale needles, large and small. And to develop these ideas, I wanted to begin to look at materials that I could either turn into a thread or look at something that was already a thread and begin to construct with knit. I've used various materials, washing lines, pipe cleaners, made felted fabric into a thread and knitted some wire. Then I moved on to some larger scale knitted pieces, some plastic bags, foil, which was quite interesting because it was knitted noise, and then just anything around the house, home, and anything from work, nylon posters that I shredded and made into a yarn and knitted that, various plastics and so forth, and some sheeted nylon materials with large chunky knitting needles. As I investigated further with my materials, I resourced previous materials from 3.1. The theme, which will continue into 3.2, is dyslexia. I have been diagnosed personally with dyslexia, so also as well my textile discipline will expand and demonstrate my thought processes, my problem solving. And here we have materials from dyslexia education, classroom based craft, and this particular piece is is knitting machine, and I wanted to investigate how to attach various materials like paper clips, rubber bands, some knitted wire, used some of the thread from previous knitted samples, made some connections with some copper pipes and lollipop sticks, and began to look at cutting rubber bands. These ideas further developed. During 3.1 I did some research with Aldo van Eyck, Creative Playgrounds, and the idea of play. And this copper pipe represents the materials that he used. He used scaffold piping with concrete. So these traditional materials with this craft-based idea of knit began to emerge. The knitting became more playful, and through here I've started to work with some inserting padding, making it very three-dimensional. Some cotton wool, inserting that so that it was three-dimensional and soft to the texture. Then I looked at, again with the knitting machine, and materials that I could either dip or coat the knitted fabric. This here is some spray paint, and the idea of the red is based around research, red for dyslexia and dyslexia awareness. So this is going to be quite relevant as one of my colour palettes possibly. Gloss paint, the knitted samples were dipped into that. Blackboard paint and some acrylic paint through here. The development of the use of materials has become a little bit more serious, and looking into my own archive, I went back and looked at some expandable foam and mesh, and some heat treated plastics, some crocheted hair, skewers, knitted and inserted. So with my materials, it's a case of also problem solving, of making attachments and attaching and also the comparisons between the materials and the soft flexibility of the knitted fabric has been quite interesting at this point, and to see how these materials react and move. You could almost say that some of the materials are quite modern, and making connections with the traditional craft. These feel very textile, building materials and textile like that you get on hoardings and shopping precincts and so forth. So that is a line of inquiry that interests me. And then just to final off the most recent samples, I've become more confident so forth with experimentation, and I've worked with the knitting machine and started to dissect some of the materials, knitting in mesh, earbuds and so forth. And then these few samples here are representing the thin red line that were connected with dyslexia, the red marker pen in school reports and so forth. And then just looking at how to attach hooks and circles and pulleys from tin cans, and also as well, which has been quite important, the scale of knitting with small and large needles. So this duration and this progress has moved from the beginning, and the knitting has become very playful. And I think that this could be a line of inquiry as a theme, also in connection with my dyslexia theme for 3.2 and in external projects. But it's also made me realise as well, with the variety of materials that I've used, that the idea is also emerging of recycle. How do I say it? Recycle and knit. Was an idea that I thought of, that I'm not only possibly making materials sustainable and recyclable, but also bringing in the knit. So at the moment, I'm trying to kind of think of a title such as Recycling Knit, where it would pull the idea of materials knitted within knitted structures, and I think that this possibly could move things forward for my 3.2 exploring further projects.